Well, as I stated, there's a difference between box opening, box cutting, box breaking down, and these are typically the things that I've used here. I've used some more than others, and I will go through those. There are a couple of things that I've used that I just think are a waste of time. One thing that's on this end, there's these little small knives that you can get that are sometimes scalpels. They're a waste of time. You use them a couple of times, they get all gummed up with the glue, and then there's no use. This is what I use probably the most. This is a Workpro one. There's a couple on my desk. I think they're like 3 for $10, and they do a really good job of cutting boxes open. And as you can see here, I actually have a ceramic blade in it, and I like the ceramic blade because they tend to last a little longer. They're a little harder to deal with because they're ceramic and they do chip, but they will last longer. They will cut through things pretty darn well, and they're a little safer to use than regular sort of razor blades. As I said, those are cheap. Those 3 for $10, I mean, or 2 for $10. You can't get better than that Workpro. I have been known to use this one, but I primarily use this one here, which is Olight or O-Knife U1. I tend to use this one when I'm traveling. Although it is illegal to travel with one of these blades on a plane without a blade. I've done it a couple of times when I knew that I was going to need a blade at the other end. And I would take the blade out, put this in, and use this one here for that. This is the old knife. I'm going to skip to here. I've used this one quite a bit. This one sat on my desk for a long time, for years. And this is a Swiss Army knife. Um, I think that this is the Huntsman here. And if you look at it closely, you will see that there's still some tape stuff and some box cutting stuff because I haven't cleaned it. And I've stopped using it maybe a year ago now when I switched to Workpro. And I've also switched to a different Swiss Army knife. But this is the Swiss Army knife that I've used. I know that some people like to use the awl, but that was not my cup of tea. I would generally use the long blade here. Most recently, I switched to this. This is the Victorinox Companion. It's got a really good box cutter, box opener. Um, this little blade here can open boxes like no other that I've seen. It's really good at opening your typical Amazon boxes or boxes that you get. It cuts through the paper very well. You can dig in without worrying about breaking through the other end with the other pieces that you have. I really like this. It just works well. It's not good for breaking down boxes, but it's good for opening boxes. This one right here, this is the fastback. I keep this in my toolkit. So this typically goes with me when I'm doing some heavy duty work or when I'm going to someone's home to help them. It will break down your boxes and you can cut them up and put them in recycling. You take this out, switch the blade to the other side, and this is the Milwaukee Fastback. I think these are a little bit more than $20. These are in the $70 range. This one's probably in like the $50 range. This is the $30 range. Then now I'm going to get into what I would call the non-standard use ones, but ones that I do use. This would be one of them, and it is just a regular inexpensive knife. Then this knife here is, the Ozark one. I've used like inexpensive knives, and I tell people, just if you're going to use a knife to cut open boxes, just get an inexpensive one. There are a bunch of pretty nice knives that are $40 or less that you can get. This one happens to have a D2 still, but if you get like a 12 something still, then it'll last a while. You can resharpen it, and then you'll get it out. I typically don't use a knife unless I'm going to break down boxes for recycling. I have, when I've carried a multi-tool, I have used those. I don't particularly like to do that, but when I do it, I typically would use the serrated edge. And I think this serrated edge is good at cutting boxes. I don't use the other one because I think that that's a waste of its blade by doing that. It sometimes takes a little longer with this serrated blade to break down a large set of boxes that are pretty darn thick, but it does work. I talked earlier about the things that I don't like to cut open with boxes are your scalpels. And scalpels are, I don't think are really meant for that. I think that you use scalpel for more fine work than breaking down boxes or opening boxes. I have found that when I use scalpels and there's a little bit of glue or tape, unlike the box, it just sticks and then that just ruins the scalpels quite a bit. This right here is a cheap Byberry knockoff of the Leatherman Surge, and so this one's like, I think what I got it for and what it's worth now is going to be different because of tariffs, but I think even with tariffs, it's less than 50 bucks. And then this is your typical Leatherman Surge, which I would do the same thing. I've got a saw here instead of a scalpel, because like I said, I'm not a scalpel person, but if I were to break down boxes with this, I would definitely use the serrated edge blade and not the regular flat blade. I typically don't break down boxes with this or anything that I would spend more than 50 bucks on because there's no reason to like do that. And you can resharpen blades, you can replace blades, and that's much cheaper, easier to do than to use a multi-tool or an expensive $100 or $200 knife. So that's what I use to cut open boxes, and break down boxes. What do you use to open your box with, cut open a box with, or break down a box? Please let me know in the comments. This is EDC, Haku EDC, and I will see you in the future.